G'day and welcome to Earn the Right, the podcast. In fact, more than the podcast, this is your audio platform for reputation-based authority building, turning credibility into recognition and recognition into opportunity. Now, if you've listened to previous episodes, you'll know that we have 4 tracks on this audio platform. And today's track is From the Trenches. And this is where we present deep dive interviews with PR practitioners, content strategists, digital communications experts that explore how reputation and influence are built today. And I've got 2 double-header today. We have, I think, the first husband and wife, actually, team double interview, double header, call it what you will today. And we're going to dissect so many things. So when I talk about experts, people who are in the trenches, my guests today are doing that on a day-to-day basis. So please welcome Andrés López-Varela and Bec Sands.
Hi, Trevor. How are you? Lovely to be here. Thangoing to having us.
Lovely to be here, Trevor.
Good to have you both. Really looking forward to digging in today. And I think people are going to get a lot of, I'm going to predict there's going to be a lot of informational nuggets of gold today and tips and insights. So stick around. And it is a big, broad, meaty topic, but it's what people face today. So I've got a theme for today, and it's a long theme, and it's a long theme on purpose. So I'm going to take a breath because it's this is what we're going to be talking about today. So today's theme: how can people strategically build a credible business or personal brand in today's hyper-competitive, AI-swamped, digital-first world, and then I added in brackets, without performing for the algorithms or shouting loud like crazy? How does that sit with you guys?
Sits well. I feel like I should have written it down. I should have taken a note there. Right? I think
Don't ask me. I had to read that off. Don't ask me to remember that. Before we get going, just so people have a bit of a feeling for you and your credibility and your bona fides, can you give a thumbnail sketch of each of you, please? Bec, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, I will kick us off. So I am a confidently visible mentor. So I support big brands and women in business to become confidently visible. I've got a background in PR over the past 17 years or so now, and started my own business in 2019. And I've sort of grown that from there as a coach and consultant. So I still do PR consulting as a core foundation of my business. And on top of that, I support, women in business as well as big brands to be in the media, to move through visibility blocks and to stand out, whether that's online or through PR or through speaking and so on and so forth. So essentially it's PR consulting and coaching in a nutshell.
Perfect. And Andreas, or ALV as he's known in the traps.
ALV as I'm known around town, absolutely. I have a similar amount of experience to my wife. I have 20, actually, I just realized I'm going into my 21st year, so my career, my professional life has finally come of age. And I've spent that time in a whole range of marketing fields, I guess, or disciplines. I've worked in everything from PR to content production to social media to performance marketing to brand marketing, all those different kind of pieces. I deliberately sort of, about halfway through my career or halfway into my career or halfway so far, I decided to be a generalist. And so that's my unabashed focus, is to kind of take the vast toolkit of marketing and know sort of which parts of it to apply to specific problems. And in particular, now I focus on marketing education and training. A lot of the time for, big brands and for small businesses as well, anyone who's eager to hear and learn, marketing strategy, primarily combining strategy and storytelling and technology to create systems for businesses to grow. So marketing actually supports their growth, and they're being, more precise and more accurate with their marketing effort and marketing spend. We are also both very proud cat parents, and I am the world's most enthusiastic amateur baker.
Well, we should have got you to have show your wares, so when this is on YouTube, people can see your handiwork in the baking skills.
The cat, just bringing the cat.
That's true. Look, it's in the studio now we have a lot of experience, folks. It's fantastic and very PR based, which is where my background is, and ALV and Bec. As you can see, ALV's gone probably more into the harder core marketing side of things. But as we know today, the parameters between all of them are mixing and blending and all sorts of things. And my shtick really is today is that people would be surprised if you're not deep into our industry, and even if you are, that a lot of what people call marketing today is actually PR. So we'll use the terms interchangeably, but we're going to get into the PR question really because I'm very keen, given you both come from that space, what you think of PR is today. What is PR? When I say PR to you today, what actually is it in your mind?
I can start if you want.
Yeah, that would be great. That would take the pressure off.
It's out of the blocks.
I have a really good idea of what it is, and all I really think it is perception. It is, it's been able to create an influence perception of a certain brand or person. That can sound like it's a negative thing, like we're, influencing perceptions and things like that. But actually, if you think about it, we're, showcasing our authentic selves, really. Yep. So showcasing, who we are, and it could be also like who a brand is. Of course, we're not going to be talking about the negative things from a PR perspective, but we're going to be, putting the brand out there or putting ourselves out there in the way, hopefully, that we are. Really. So it's kind of sharing the truth. It's sharing information, and it's been able to have an impact and have a positive impact in the world through the communications channels that we use, whether that is speaking on stage, whether that is, doing media interviews, whether that is sharing value-laden content on social media, whether that's podcasting. But ultimately, it's like providing value. Yeah. So we're kind of trying to change the world in a positive way with what we do through PR. And all of that is really about perception.
Yeah. Andreas?
I like that. I like the idea that we're trying to change the world. Most people would not associate our line of work with changing the world.
Not everyone. Like every industry, there's going to be some people doing shitty things, right? Like every industry.
Some shysters around for sure.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. They're everywhere. I think for me, my understanding of this field has evolved over time, along with my own journey into running businesses myself. Running professional services businesses, running my own business, and also now doing business advice for small businesses as well. And so it's kind of evolved along that track. And for me, I think PR comes back to the more traditional, I would say, it broadens out now to really be about publics, to be about audiences, and to be about audience building, and to kind of nurture and grow and facilitate these kind of, deeper connections with groups of people that I would call your audiences, in order to, over time, yes, commercialize them and turn them into your customers 100%, but acknowledging that actually in this day and age, with all the hyper kind of fragmentation of the media landscape, that actually building those audiences into communities of interest and, ones that are aligned with your values as an individual or as a business, that actually is what public relations is. And so it kind of, forms up there at the intersection of community building, of perception, like Bec said, of communications, and also of sort of, revenue generating, growth driving activities. So to me, it comes back to that more traditional definition of publics, understanding your audience, and building your own audience as a business asset.
Yeah. No, I like both of those. I mean, people who listen to this podcast have probably heard me say that, my definition is, it's all about deepening the level of connection you have with the people who matter the most to the success of your business or cause or issue, if that's your end game. And, it doesn't matter whether it's through the media, being on someone's podcast like it's happening here, what we'd call earned media, I suppose. Content creation is very, very much in a PR remit. Social media, of course, events, roadshows, online communities. But now we've got GEO, generative AI, and people coming up in search and answers on ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and the like. So, this is an area that just keeps growing, because I say that, and I mean we're all deep into it, and I recommend, I get overwhelmed. I think we all get overwhelmed, and we're trying to stay in front, but also being generalists, we can join the dots, which is what I want to do today.
Yes.
Because there are people that just specialize in media relations, and they might call themselves PR, but it's only one small slice of PR. I mean, I know people who are in PR practitioners who wouldn't even speak to a journo today. So these are things that people, I think, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, solo practice owners, they can do themselves a lot of this stuff as well. But you've got to see the big picture and see how the dots are joined. So tighten things up a little bit more. In my world, I'm very much around building credible authority, or helping my clients and my audience build credible authority, because I think sharks and shysters, you used the word before, Andrés, shysters and hucksters and pretenders and wannabes and chess beaters out there playing a good game, but the people who are probably really got the credibility and the runs on the board are probably a little bit more silent these days. They're the ones we want to hear from. So I'm curious, where do you both stand on the whole notion of building, let's call it personal brand authority?
Oh, well, Bec, this is your soapbox to stand on, really.
Excellent.
I mean, well, it's a good thing. I mean, I think we need to hear... I wasn't going to say that. No, look, I think we do need to hear more from people who are experts, like you say, Trev. Like, we need to hear more from people that have the experience, that are trying to do, good things in the world and share, valuable content and share their expertise and share their learnings and to support their clients and other people, right? Like, we need to hear more from these people. I think, yes, it is 100% saturated, and we're obviously seeing a hell of a lot of AI content that is coming out, and it's boring. And I think I actually saw something yesterday that the algorithm of the social media platforms are actually starting to stop ranking AI content.
Terrific.
In most ways. So I think we're going to see more of that. I think we need to see more of that kind of that human-centric content. But I think more and more, what we do need to hear from is not just people and their expertise for the sake of building a personal brand, but we want to hear from them for the sake of doing positive things in the world and for the sake of actually supporting other people, and to do that to create connections, like you said, which is all part of building that kind of perception.
That is.
We absolutely need to hear from the human side of it. So what we're hearing from, what we need to hear more from is these experts and these people that are really credible in their industries, but sharing from a more personable kind of lens. Like, I experienced this and that. So it's almost like the first person narrative rather than, kind of that third person, or going on there and kind of sharing, here's the, the latest industry stuff, because that's boring and people are going to just keep scrolling beyond that, just like AI content. So I think, we just really need to connect with the human story. We need to hear more from the people, and we need to hear that built in with the kind of valuable content that's going to support people.
I see that as sort of really, really valuable for businesses of all sizes, even large businesses. I think the example of Rare Beauty, which is Selena Gomez's beauty cosmetics brand, and she herself, started the business with a very kind of sustainable, inclusive sort of ethos. But then, interestingly, a lot of the channels have evolved into a combination of the brand and the individual people that are speaking on behalf of the brand, and it's often almost always not Selena Gomez. They have they have a really great Substack, and it is phenomenal. In my opinion, it is the best brand Substack that I've seen, and it's written by this lady called Mackenzie Kassab, and she is really I guess not building her own brand, but she is adding her own, as Bec says, personal lens to that content. And that's making that content far more editorial and compelling. And like you said earlier, Trevor, it's sort of allowing a sense of connection and deepening connection with the brand beyond just the product and, like Bec said, the trends and the industry news. And I think that is valuable and in fact so much more achievable for solopreneurs or small businesses.
Absolutely.
Where you don't have like 16 layers of approvals to kind of go through, you know.
Yeah.
What Mackenzie Kassab has achieved there is really pretty extraordinary. And I think that's a great example for businesses of all sizes to go and check out. And I think that's also really important, to Bec's point, about because of the impact in the world. You know, I really see, like, we're really challenged with the democratization of these digital channels where anyone can say anything. Anyone can jump on Kick and just sort of stream for 3 hours and, you know, while they're playing Call of Duty and just rant about things, or, you know, that they can become a right-wing or a left-wing provocateur or anything like that. And they're just saying stuff. They're just saying stuff. And there's no real sense of whether it's true or factual or correct or even, you know, in everyone's best interest. And so for those of us that have a bona fide expertise, that have an area of knowledge and practice that we do have that kind of, you know, authority in, I would suggest it's an obligation to bring that knowledge to the world for the benefit of society. And yeah, it's going to be helpful and useful and good for your bottom line as well, 100%. But for God's sake, let's also contribute positively to the overall conversation, because the only way that we can, you know, outweigh and sort of, you know, demote that sort of crappy garbage content is through good quality authoritative content from people who are sharing their genuine bona fide lived experience about that stuff as well.
And it's actually, if you really want to go a bit deeper, it's actually selfish to hold that knowledge in, to hoard it. It's without putting too fine a point on it, but why wouldn't you want to give it away and talk about it? And I think the days of, I'm not going to, you know, talk about, you know, if you're getting about my expertise and frameworks and helping people, because that's what people pay me for. I mean, that's sort of 20-year-old thinking that. But it's not about that, but it's about if you've got, you know, if you're in an industry and you're not out there helping the next layer of people out by, you know, sharing your wisdom, and we're talking about people who have got runs on the board and they've got wisdom and lived experience versus, you know, they've checked something on ChatGPT and just bunged it out there. It's kind of a little bit incumbent on you, I think, in terms of humanity, is to help pass on some of that knowledge and not hoard it. That'll be that's one soapbox. The other one is then you've opened the door then with, you know, ranters and ravers and algorithms that favour rage and rage bait. This is the issue we see, whether it's on LinkedIn or, you know, like Twitter and all those, there's more rage bait there. A little less on LinkedIn, albeit it's creeping in. But the people who perform versus, you know, the people who add depth. I always say even LinkedIn now is favouring dopamine over depth. How do you reconcile that now? I think that's the biggest issue, and it's a social media issue first and foremost. But we're all on social media. We all use it. You know, you need to. Yeah, that's where people's clients are. So we need to kind of be on it without going crazy. How do we reconcile? And I had a comment on one of my Substacks the other day, and I see this coming up again and again. How do we reconcile the fact that, okay, I've got something to say. I want to put my story and my message out there. I want to add value, all the good things. And in years gone by, that sort of stuff would get picked up by your followers and people who are connected with you. But that's not the case today, because all the social media channels are interest-based, not connection-based. So where to? This is the biggest thing facing people. How do they cut through on social media, and should they just chuck it in altogether? And maybe with a LinkedIn skew.
Well, look, so firstly, I just want to say to that, like, I understand that wanting to kind of, you know, I guess cater to the algorithm and change your whole content strategy because of the algorithm. I am personally not into that. Like, it goes against my values. I'm kind of like, I don't want to share stuff that I don't want to share. If I don't want to do dancing reels, I don't want to do dancing reels. Like, I would rather go without the followers and engagement than do something that I don't want to do or be told what to do.
This is
But my husband will testify to this. Like, I don't like to be told what to do. So it's kind of like, I'm just like, I'm not going to allow the algorithms to tell me what to do. Like, I would rather kind of forgo that followers and engagement and just create a deeper relationship with a smaller audience that I'm actually going to work with than just have vanity metrics. But in saying that, of course, there is a time when you do want to get engagement and you do want to like expand your reach and your audience and things like that. And so I think it really is kind of about niching down a bit more and like reaching the right people. Obviously, you know, with the algorithm, social, everything, they want you to pay for it. They want you to pay to reach your own followers. They want you to pay to reach your own community. They want to keep people on the platforms. This is the whole, like, they're a business to make money and they make a lot of it. So of course they're going to be like, yep, get in there and pay for it. So there is an element of paying for content on social media these days. Like, it is, you know, there is more and more of like having to pay to get to new audiences. And this is why I think it's so important to get people off like your social media as well, and to bring them into your own communities, bring them into your email list, which you own, bring them into your Substack, bring them into, you know, whatever community, whatever platform that looks like. Obviously, if it's like a Facebook group, then Facebook still owns that. You still need to pay to reach your own group. So like ideally not on one of those social platforms. So, but you know, if you can just get people into your own orbit, whether that's in physical scenarios like events or, you know, workshops, webinars, so on and so forth. Or if it's, you know, your own communities hosted outside of those social media platforms, then for me, that's kind of, that's sort of the way forward.
Yeah. Andreas?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, you know, whatever we can do to move people into closed groups effectively, I think that's where it's at. And we see that. I see that when I work with clients and I do research projects and I see the shift, even in the last 2 years, you know, like you see the movement away and what the high value actions are. And now we're at a point that in social media, our highest value action is a save. You know, if someone saves an item, a reel, a video, a post, that's the highest value action. Because the truth is that's a pathway for them to then share it, you know, or come back to it. It used to be that comments or likes were the highest value engagement. But people don't have that extrinsic motivation on social media anymore. And so everything you guys said, you know, it's completely spot on. And so we need to refocus on that intrinsic motivation, and we need to find ways that we can connect with people in smaller, more kind of purposeful small communities that ideally we own, but also, you know, sometimes it does cost people money to set up and run those communities, and they may not have that money in their business. So, you know, secondly, if you can't afford to set up your own community on your own website, then just get a small WhatsApp group and just, you know, like have that going, for example. You know, like that's better than just like you said, TY, like shouting super loud into the void.
Yeah, I wrote an article recently and it's called The Algorithmic Erosion of Identity.
Yeah.
And it's kind of kicked off a little bit, and it really is, I mean, that's what it is the over time, as the algorithm starts strangling our organic content, and I say LinkedIn's now doing this and LinkedIn wants you to pay now, as this takes place, we start doing little things that are basically eroding our identity and our personal brand, and it's insidious. That's the word I'll use, because it's not where we'll just start dancing straight away or doing rage bait, but these little things that the algorithm will reward, we start doing little by little by little, and then over a period of time, you know, we become known for those things are not what we are. And I think that's a key thing that people got to be aware of, is you don't want to be changing too much to serve the algorithm, because then that's what you'll become known for. And that's not what, because you can game it, but the content you put out to game it is not what you want to be known for.
I was just going to pose a question, and is social media becoming more and more of a bit of a distraction? I mean, obviously there's always going to be a place for it, but The fact is that we're spending so much time trying to figure out the algorithm and tweak our content and change all of that what we should really probably be doing is spending time with our own audiences in our own communities and providing huge amounts of value to them there. And that's what I'm seeing actually a lot of really successful businesses, particularly in the online space here in Australia, doing that. Like they're spending less and less time on social media and they are, because of all of the reasons we've talked about, and they're spending more and more time creating these private communities that once they get people in, they can showcase and you've got less competition in your own community, right? Because on social media, you're competing with every man and his dog in your space, right? Like you've got everyone, shouting from the rooftops. Whereas in your own community, you're the leader there. And I think so if the people that really resonate with you join your community in some way, then that's where you can foster and nurture those relationships.
Bang on. And I really agree with that. And that'll probably lead us next, because what we're talking about is owned media. I know you guys owned media people first too, and owned media that's our jargon, but I can't think of a better term. It's a good term. But they're the channels you own and control. So, whether it's your own email newsletter, Substack, even though you're on another platform, you can always get access to your email list. It's where someone can't take it away from you. You're putting out a podcast. YouTube's an interesting one because, again, you're on a quasi-social channel.
I would suggest that YouTube is not owned media, Trevor. I would suggest YouTube is owned media.
But you can always, you put your videos on it, but you take them off and put them on your own blog.
Yes, correct.
That's what I'm saying.
But
if you build your audio just on YouTube, not great, but it's a discovery mechanism anyway. So it's a little bit different to the other social channels in that regard. So I kind of put it as a bit of a sidebar. But anything that you own, your website, anything that you own and control, and even face-to-face running events, or an online community on Circle or something like that. They're the things that you own. So we're going to delve into that now. What's your take on owned media? Bec's already opened the door on that, but what's your take on owned media? Obviously, we think it's important. How many channels should people use? Which one should they pick? What channels should they pick, etc.? Let's dive into that. ALV, I know you're an owned media guy as well. How do people say, okay, I need an owned media channel. I hear what you say.
What's my home base?
What's my home base? And how many channels do I need? And what does it look like? And how do I go about picking? What's the criteria?
I think the first question or the first point to consider is that owned media is not an awareness driving vehicle. You cannot use owned media to drive awareness. Owned media helps you drive, in the marketing sense, consideration and conversion. You must create awareness elsewhere in order to say to people, hey, I'm over here. Come and have a look at my things. I'd like to invite you over to my home base, to my secret club over here. And so what we have to remember is that we can't just, focus on owned media. It is super important for all the reasons we've just been talking about for the last 20 minutes, but it is not the trigger, the ignition point. It's not the bit that sort of strikes the match, right? And so we do need to focus on other channels before we get to own media. I would suggest increasingly, I believe, based on where the internet's at and my practice and, the work that I've done in the past few years, that we have to start with paid media, right? We have to start with paid media, and then we transition into earned media, and then we bring people over to owned. And then ideally we own, over time, we reduce the cost of paid media because we're lovingly sucking people into our own orbit and our own home base, and we're keeping them there. And so we always need to acquire, but, at a slower clip, right? And so I think the first question is not where should the owned media channel be, but it's what should point to this channel. Where is your audience? Is your audience, out there, bombulating in the corners of the internet? Are they on Reddit? Are they watching streamers on Twitch? Are they listening to podcasts, like you said, TY? Are they, cruising Substack? Where are they, right? That's the first question. And so wherever they are is where you should go, and, you should try to pay and earn your earn your way into those spaces, right? And then use that information to determine what your home base should be. If they're on streaming, for example, if they're on Twitch or on Kick, then you're going to probably have to do video. And you're going to have to do video in a way that's kind of compelling on your own media spaces and use those places, right? If they're on Substack, if they're cruising Substack, and if they're sort of, in forums and that kind of thing, yeah, then maybe you should consider email as sort of a home base as kind of the most appropriate channel, right? If they're out there also, watching short videos and things like that, then a podcast is probably going to be, that might generate some short video and other short content is probably going to be the best place. And so I would never say to someone, oh, you must definitely have this. And certainly in the work that I do, in the business advisory I do for small businesses, we talk with a lot of businesses about not actually having a website as a primary importance for their business, that actually in some cases a really robust Google business profile, for example, which is not owned, right? But a really robust Google business profile actually meets their needs better, And so I would always ask that question, where is the audience and what formats are they kind of engaging and consuming in order to inform the answer to where should my home base be? I know that's kind of conditional, but that's I'm a strategist, so I can never give a straight answer, I guess.
Can I play a bit of devil's advocate here?
No, not at all. What are you talking about?
Here we go.
Well, no. No. Like, I agree with you to an extent, but actually, in a way, I disagree, because I've grown my business over the past 6 years, very successfully without paid. And I think, and I've grown an audience, not a huge one. I think to grow a huge audience, you need to pay. I do think that, particularly if your audiences, Trev, are like the solopreneurs, we don't necessarily want to pay to start with. We don't want to pay for our audiences. So we want to tap into our existing network. So I think you can still do that without paying. And I think, LinkedIn is a really good way to do that. But still, you can, you might only have like a much lower engagement than we used to have, but you can still access your existing audience. So yes, to grow new audiences, you'd probably need to pay, but we've all got, if we've got the kind of the career, if we're doing the solopreneur thing, we've probably got an existing network of people that are already connected with us. And so we just want to get in front of them, right? And build the relationship with them. So we can still create the profile, the community. We can still create the content for those people and their connections potentially. So you still can get to that kind of niche audience that you're wanting to get to, if you're not just wanting to be famous in front of everyone, if you're,
That's fair. I think that's fair.
There's no right or wrong, by the way. I mean, it's really what your goals are. And if you want to fast track things, well, then of course you will have to pay. Or you want to be doing it slow and more organic, then you can do that. And I think the difference here too, and it's probably worth people thinking about, is I'm talking about what I'd call reputation creators. So they're people who've got businesses and the content that they create actually supports the business. Then you've got the independent content creators, which we hear a lot about, and they're the ones building massive YouTube channels, and their job is to build an audience as big as possible and then find out ways and means to monetize it.
They're publishers.
Yeah, they're publishers and they're media companies.
They're media publishers.
So they've got a different reason for doing it. So if you're a business person creating content to build your brand, then that's a different mindset than someone who wants to go hell for leather, build a large audience. So it doesn't mean you can't cross over, because there are people who do really well as reputation creators, and they do so well that it takes them into a new orbit, and they become more of a media publisher. So just thought I'd throw that in. But you're right. I mean, so the question listeners need to ask is, well, what are my goals and how fast do I want to grow? And if I'm in quite a tight niche, maybe paid's not. But if you're in a more consumer brand for whatever reason, and you've got an audience that's a bit more spread across different channels, you might have to consider that to do it. But you're also saying, Andreas, is over time my theory is you do the own channels first and then you draw people back in, whether it's through paid and earned. And really it's hard to get earned media without a solid profile anyway. So, but it's which what's the cart and what's the horse? I'm an owned media first guy. You build that first and then you do the others. But obviously you're saying build your audience and
Well, I mean, I still think it's important to build the own media like first, but I think, you know, what I'm suggesting is look at where the audience, your audience is, your publics, like we said at the start. Where are they? You know, and understand where they are, rather than just going, oh, I'll just build a website and I'll put all my shit on a website, because that actually may not be right. It may not be right, you know, and increasingly I think with, you know, AI powered search results. Like, I mean, when AI mode was announced earlier this year, I saw a bunch of publishers, you know, kind of like saying things like on industry media and marketing websites, saying things like, oh, you know, we've been using AI in our workflows already, and, you know, we're not scared of this. We think this is an opportunity. And I think I wrote something on a LinkedIn post or something, and I said, imagine being that publisher, that media publisher, who is so deluded into thinking that they can fight and survive Google's AI mode. You can't. And it's already been proven. AI mode's been here in Australia for 2 months, and a lot of media publishers have seen drops of their traffic in excess of 17, 18%. And that destroys their business model completely. And so the truth is that website as the place of primacy being completely dislodged by AI-powered search and by, you know, generative AI experiences like ChatGPT, like Claude, like you said earlier, you know. So I would not default to a website as the place to build your own media and your own audience. That's my caveat, I guess, on this.
It's interesting. I mean, when you're saying, well, you find out where your audience is and what's going to be of interest and relevance to them. But on the other hand, and now we're talking formats, I guess. Are you going to be doing something more Substacky or that's writing, more longer form? Is it more going to be more video based, and where does that housed? Going to be more community based? Is it going to be audio only? And it's a podcast, although you can repurpose that in a million different ways now. But, you know, I'm probably more erring on the side of, well, if you hate being on a video, don't do video because it'll be crap, you know?
Sure.
Unless you want to, you know, you're committed to it and you're going to learn and experiment and do it. But a lot of people, it's just the worst thing in the world. Some people are really great talkers. So podcasts, some people don't want to write. I've had clients who don't want to write, will not write, but by geez, they're good on video. So everything we did mostly was video, and then we could transfer that back into the written word in repurposing. But what's your take on how people should select an own media channel? You just said, ALV, that, you know, where's your audience? How do you, I'm going to use reconcile again. That's twice in one podcast. I don't think I've ever used it before. How do you reconcile that?
I think that there's a natural tension there, I think, between, like you said, you know, where is your audience and what do you want to do? What are you good at? I think there's a natural tension there, right? I mean, look, I would always err on the side of your audience. You know, I would always say, you know, if your audience is showing a preference for something, a particular format or a channel, then that's where you should go. You know, if you're looking for something that's like a deal breaker, then, you know, that to me would be the criteria. That would be how you sort of, you know, resolve that question. I think that particularly for solopreneurs, small businesses, people starting out and maybe who are kind of like just starting to formalize their marketing, their promotion, their PR, all that activity, I think you should like directly ask your clients, like literally, you know, if you have a shop and they come into the shop, just ask them a couple of questions while you're putting the product into the bag. Just do it really slowly so there's enough time for you to ask them a couple of questions. If you do like online consultations, just sort of ask your client, you know, could you do 15 minutes at the end of the call so I could ask you these questions? You know, do a survey or something like that. Like literally go and ask people. The good thing about being a small business is that people are probably very connected to you individually as the business owner or as someone who works in the business. And so I would say, if you were trying to decide on where to go and where to kind of build your home base, you know, that's really, really helpful, you know. And it's also less overwhelming than like going onto Google, doing a bunch of keyword research, looking at, you know, trends and reading all the blogs and watching all the marketing bros on YouTube and everything tell you what to do and where to go, you know. I think asking your client is the most straightforward and least risky way of determining where you should be building your home base, I guess. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Yeah, but also, no, it does. It does make sense, because I was going to follow that up and say, well, how do you know where your audience is? And the only way to do it is through that to ask. And as a bigger company, it might get a little bit more, if you've got a broader spread. But we probably missed the bit out even beforehand, is who is your audience. So we're taking it.
I'm very passionate about that.
We're taking it as a given that you're going to understand who your customers are, and have a couple of different, I hate the word persona, but a couple of ideal client profiles.
No, totally,
that you do. But that's a whole, we don't need to go into all of that. But never forget the people who influence your clients too. Because, I had one client who was a lawyer, and his client, a commercial lawyer, and his clients owned multi-million-dollar businesses, and very much in blue collar. So transport and logistics and industrial cleaning and stuff. And they weren't on social media. They were a very, very hard to reach audience. Yeah. But the people they did listen to were their accountants. So a lot of what we did was aimed at the accountants as a Trojan horse. So always, and this is probably the PR person in me, is never underestimate the people who are actually influential in your clients' lives. And that'll be different for different people and for different reasons.
But this is the difference, TY, between an audience and a customer, right? Like, actually an audience involves all those people you're talking about. And so that's why I believe that building your own audience is so important, because your customers will come from there, and you'll get much better customers from there. And you can also group your people that are influencers into that space of your audience and speak to them in ways that are compelling to them as well. So yet another great advertisement for why you should be focusing on building an audience as a business asset.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, I was just going to say, like, across my business, so from inception over the past 6 years to now, I like my kind of customer journey, because I do ask my clients like where they found me, and and I kind of say social media is a distraction, but like they've all found me on social media, or they've come to me through a connection, I've worked with someone they know, or like it's a personal word of mouth referral, or I've literally worked with them in the past and they want to work with me again. So it's like that personal connection, or they've seen me on social media, they've followed me on social media. They sign up to my email, they listen to my podcast, and that's how then they'll sign up to something that I have to offer. But I think kind of on the social media topic, I think it is harder and harder and harder to reach your audience without paying, but you still can, and you still must have that presence.
Yeah. And it's a mindset too, to say not everyone, not a million followers, which is what we see success as. It's not that. It's less is more. And some people have got really small followings and do very well because they have a really tight connection with them. So it's more about the depth of knowledge that you share and the humanity that we just talked about earlier, and the stories you tell, and your experience of putting that out there and connecting with the right people through the right channels versus trying to do everything. I mean, you could go, we've all had LinkedIn posts that have gone absolutely nuts, probably in the older days, not now. And it's irrelevant, because, I recall one, and most of the people were from, in major companies in New York, for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's not relevant to me. Do I get a dopamine hit? Sure. Is it relevant? No. So, don't let virality be the goal. That is not the goal. That is not the goal. And I will just tie this bit up with a nice bow, hopefully, and it's really interesting today. I'm also believer in being more multimedia, because I'm bored with just doing the one thing. That's me. But if you're starting off, yes, pick that one format that's going to work for you. But really, some people read, some people listen, some people watch video. And I don't know. Anecdotally, it's a third. I don't know. But, if you do a podcast, you can now use Riverside like I use here. We can turn it into videos. You can do so much with it. You can turn that into a blog posts, etc. So we have the tools and everything today to repurpose content way more easily than we used to 5 years ago. So that probably should be the goal for a lot of people at some point. I want to touch on earned media because, again, that you both have been in that space for a long time, and Andreas, you used the word earlier. Just again for that's jargon. Earned media is anything that you've earned. So it's really thinking about other people's audiences. So whether you're on someone's podcast, you do a guest post on someone else's blog, you do an opinion piece in an industry publication that serves your audience. Tier 1 media would be being on radio and TV news.
But you earn it, you don't pay for it.
You earn it, you don't pay for it. And you earn it through various means. Usually you're out there and you've got a sense of authority, unless you've got genuine news. Some people might have genuine news and they've come up with the most amazing new product that just blows everyone away. But most people aren't that. So I'm just going to default to you're an emerging thought leader or an expert of some note in your domain, and how do you get that out there? And what's your take on earned media today? Anything else you want to add on what it is? But what's your take on it? How important is it? How do people approach it? When should they approach it? If they should approach it? I'm going to go to Bec because she's an earned media lover.
I do think it's important. I think earned media is, it's a lot more impactful and influential than what you pay for because, people can spot an ad a mile away. Yeah. And, it's less trustworthy because it's like just you're kind of tooting your own horn. Whereas when you've got someone else who is, kind of positioning you as an expert and talking to you and promoting your work, it's kind of like a third-party endorsement. Yep. And so traditionally in PR, that's been done through the media and through being featured in media and interviews and things like that. Obviously, like media is becoming less and less, like journalists are more and more stretched. In a way that is still in, like, particularly in professional services industries, that's still having a really positive impact for PRs because we can kind of just write the stuff for the journalists and give it to them and then they just run it. Really
that's our dirty little secret.
I'm airing our dirty laundry.
Some journalists
leave that entire thing out.
I guess.
But, it still needs to be newsworthy content. Like, it still needs to be well thought out, well written and positioned.
And the smaller the smaller the publication where they're running off the smell of an oily rag, they probably more default to that than the bigger ones where the journo will never do that. So...
Yeah, and I mean more and more even that's becoming paid, particularly with trade media. They're like, you can have a partnership with us and then you can submit the news quality stuff that we run. So it's kind of almost like, But look, aside from that, earned media is still, it's all about third-party endorsement. We kind of touched on this earlier when we were talking about word of mouth, and word of mouth is still the most powerful. Like, think about it. If you're, even if you're looking for like a physio in your local area, you're going to ask your friends. You're like, who's a good physio in this area, or you're going to Google it and look at the reviews.
Now.
Yeah, you're going to chat GPT it, right? You're going to go like, who's, but you're going to look for, you're not just going to kind of, you're going to do your homework and you're going to trust word of mouth from a friend. And like, if a good friend that you trust says something to you like, oh, this person was really good to work with, I recommend you work with them, you're going to go, cool, done. Yeah. And I think this is the power of earned kind of PR, marketing, media, everything. It's like that third-party endorsement. So any way that you can do that. And look, some of the best ways are really appearing on other people's podcasts, like what we're doing today. Yes. It's like, being a guest presenter in someone else's group online course. It is pitching yourself to media. It's pitching yourself as a speaker on a panel, so all of these kinds of things, ways that you can get in front of other people's audiences, like you mentioned before, but then really get that kind of third party endorsement as a testimonial to who you are and like positioning you as, that person that you want to be positioned as in your field, whether that's the thought leader, the expert, whatever.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to note, and I was only having a conversation with someone the other day who's more operating at the top end of town in terms of enterprise PR and comms, but he was just bemoaning from one client who all they ever wanted was the top financial newspapers and nothing else mattered. And they still measured everything by column inches. So that's sort of 20 to 30 years thinking old. But be that as may, it's not about, I call that Broadway, the tier one media and even LinkedIn and going viral on LinkedIn with the big audiences and it's crowded. That's Broadway. And I wrote a piece recently about the power of off Broadway, which is the smaller rooms that reach more niche audiences. So that might be a smaller industry newsletter or publication. It might be a podcast with a smaller audience, not Joe Rogan, for example. Joe Rogan's you're never going to get on Joe Rogan is Broadway. Some of the the podcasts done by traditional media and the big tier one media, that's Broadway. Off Broadway are the smaller audiences, and then we have off Broadway, which might be you talk at someone's small online community or their mastermind or tiny audiences as well. So I like that thinking is that you start small, you build up, and then maybe one day you do get to the bigger thing. But it's the body of work and the commitment to seeing the opportunities to put yourself in front of other people's audiences and do it in a really, again, genuine value-added way. Yeah. If you build your brand strong enough, people will come to you. So there is an inbound aspect to it and, say yes and get involved. But then there's the pushing out as well. So it is an inbound, outbound. Andreas, you've been, you speak, you get out there and speak on stages. The stage is the media. And you've earned the right to be on that stage. So you do a lot of that at conferences, but you also appear on podcasts, etc. So that's probably inbound earned media for you. How do you see earned media working today? And do you do much of it with your clients or factor it into your strategic comms?
Look, I agree with everything you guys have said. I think it's the best summation of the way to think about earned media these days, particularly appearing in other people's communities and spaces that are curated already, because I think that drives a tremendous level of impact. And, conferences are the original kind of, closed, WhatsApp chat or the exclusive Slack channel that you see now, a lot of brands and individuals kind of, spruiking. And being invited to come in and be like, hey, have a look at this guy or have a look at this girl and see what they have to say. I think they're really great. I think has tremendous power. And that's really where I would focus on. For anyone who's sort of looking to kind of, exploit earned media, the off-Broadway and the off-Broadway, I think is probably going to deliver the most impact, right? Because there's a difference between reach and kind of, like affinity, if you like, and you might need reach if you're a political candidate trying to win office. 100% you have to go Broadway, or you might need reach if you're like, a celebrity launching a new line of course, things. I don't know, whatever celebrities launch a line of anything these days. I saw someone the other day like a chef or a cook launching like a line of plates, and they're all just like white plates. They're all just plain white plates, and the key selling point was that they stack well and they fit in the dishwasher. And I was like, wow, that is boring AF. Anyway,
that audience would be other chefs.
No. This was a consumer line that was being sold like in shops by like Maxwell Williams.
Chef wannabes.
Anyway. Yeah.
But there is room for the mainstream media. Otherwise, there is no mainstream media. But
correct. But however,
always the needed. You put the effort in to get it, and it might not be much at all.
Exactly. And you get reach, but you don't get that sort of deeper
resonance.
Kind of engagement.
You don't get resonance.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one thing I would say about earned media is that you cannot rely on it to create awareness, right? Because you're earning, as this podcast is called, you're earning the right to be in that space.
Yeah.
You can't predict it. You can't say, I'm going, gone are the days where you would hire a quote unquote PR consultant or PR agency to get you 12 appearances in the media a month. Gone are the days.
Yeah, no.
Those days that haven't been around for 15 years, So you cannot predict it. And so you need to really be clear about that is an accelerator. It's a bonus. It can't be the fundamental of your branding, communications, marketing strategy.
And if you want to also it's very powerful to bring people back to your to your home base as well. So I think that's
100%.
important as well, because it's yes, do it to get your name out there, but what's the next step? Where do you want to send them? And that's going to be different for different people, obviously. If you're building your email list, that might be one thing. You might be talking about a specific product you've launched or whatever. You might get the opportunity to say that. But it is something that, if you do strategically, I mean, if it's inbound, strategically is, yep, that's right for me, that's not for me, whatever. But if you're going to be going out and being active, then it's really spotting what are the opportunities, what's the low-hanging fruit, and don't worry too much about size of audience, but quality of audience, I think, is the way to go. There's a couple of things also to think about it. I think it's probably the greatest opportunity for everything, because while things have got really tough in terms of media fragmentation and people's attention are being split everywhere, the opportunity therefore is, albeit with smaller audiences, but people want content. Everyone wants content. A brand that's running its own blog or podcast needs content. There's more vertical titles than ever before now. There's more podcasts than ever before, and you've got YouTube shows, et cetera, et cetera.
That's it.
And of course, people are doing online events and summits. Like, that's been a big thing for me, to be on someone else's summit, because that gets really big audiences. So, but you've often got to earn the right for that, and that will come to you. It's a bit harder to pitch for that. But if you want to speak at events that are rolling within an industry, professional associations are always having conferences and meetups, then perhaps the best PR activity you can do is go and have a coffee with the head of that association or whoever does the thing, and just get to know them. Sometimes a face-to-face coffee, I know, shock horror, it's probably the most expensive thing you can do, given the cost of coffee anyway.
I agree. I just want to share as well. Like, we've kind of talked about how hard it is to, get media coverage now, but there is still an opportunity in media. There is still media. There's still an opportunity for earned mainstream media.
Yep.
I still have consulting clients, which I, get them 50, 60 pieces of media coverage a year. And that's like over like the major metro papers, TV, and print/online. So like, it's, it is still possible, but you do need to have more resources. So you need to be investing in things like surveys. You need to be investing in research and data. You need to be coming up with clever kind of angles that are a little bit outside of the square, or tap into popular discourse. Tap into things that are happening at the moment. So you can, but it's very resource heavy.
You have to be on top of things. You have to be on top of things, and really more of a problem. It sounds like more of a consumer audience rather than a B2B specifically.
B2B, but professional services.
Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. It just takes time and effort to do it, and it's something you got to commit to. But the other good thing with earned media is you can take that logo, even if you were once mentioned in a newspaper that's quite a large circulation. You take the logo of that and you can put that on your website legitimately, and those are social proof. Those the credibility markers, as I call them. I mean, they're very important. And if you've been on 5 podcasts, put those podcasts up on your website, because they're shortcuts for other podcast people. Or
100%.
I can tell you what, if a journalist is going to interview you, they're going to do their homework and they're going to check you out. A, can you be found? And B, does your bona fides stack up, and is there any social proof? Because they need cognitive shortcuts. And I've appeared on these things is great. Not that I've bought a Forbes bloody, mentioned exposure, that sort of stuff. People can pick straight away, but genuine, and they don't need to be massive. Other thing we mentioned, GEO, generative AI. So being found when people are asking ChatGPT or Google Gemini or something, something. There's some ongoing research, but research to show that it's something between 70 and 80%. I don't think the word is indexed, but they crawled. I don't know, but it comes from earned media. So earned media is having a renaissance now, and this is probably more prominent earned media with credible sources and publications and podcasts that you've been on. But that is what ChatGPT and others are looking at and getting ready and surfacing. So that's a whole different ballgame. And that's, if that's so critical to your business, I'd be spending a fair bit of time in that space. But it's just yet another layer of everything we have to do.
Yeah.
I will give an example just on the earned media side of things. I've had him on this podcast some time back, a guy called Jake Moore, the UK. And he started really early days, and he worked with the police in Bournemouth in the UK, in the town of Bournemouth, and he was helping people with cybersecurity, small businesses. And he would just humanise it and do videos on the beach talking about cybersecurity and all of these things. Over time, he built his brand as such as he got recruited or headhunted for a company called ESET, which is a cybersecurity software company. And now he is a global phenomenon in cybersecurity. He's been on every top BBC news, whatever. And he only last week, I think he was in the House of Commons, I think it is, in the UK Parliament to talk about cybersecurity. I've watched his growth, and he's done that through being on podcasts and being the smaller things, starting with social media early and then building up. And now, because he has that credibility, he's been on all the big shows and big radio stations and everything. He is becoming the number one cybersecurity guy in the UK, if not starting to build out even greater. And I've seen it happen. He's good at what he does. He's responsive. He's on top of his game. And he gets up early every morning and looks at all the things that are happening. Like there's effort goes into it, but boy, it builds upon, it compounds is the word I'm saying. That
compounds, and
that's on a big scale. But if you looked at even a smaller scale, micro compounding is going to be better for you than no compounding at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a long game. Like you can't go into it expecting that, I'm going to do this one thing and then I'm going to get this one thing out of it. Like it sort of takes some time, and maybe it's not like a super long game. Like you will see results drop out as you're building. But I think that example is a great reminder that this is something that you need to kind of almost like start even before you're ready in order to make sure that you can get the results you need, when you need them, I guess.
Yeah.
It also strikes me that, nothing has really changed at the end of the day. Like the fundamentals.
Everything's changed, but nothing's changed. I like where you're going with this. I know where you're going. Go for it.
Yeah. Look, everything's changed, but nothing's changed. So the fundamentals of PR, of business, of marketing, they're all the same. It's just the channels that we use are a little bit different. The algorithm changes. Maybe we use some fancy new tools like Chat, GPT, whatever. But like at the end of the day, like how we do this, it's all foundational, build the relationships, whatever way you do that, that's fine. Yeah. Build the credibility, whatever way you do that, great.
What's not going out of style is storytelling and humanity.
Exactly.
And all of that, which we've now got the tools at our disposal to do those sorts of things really well. Very conscious of time because we could this could be a marathon. So I know you guys got work to do. I want to finish with a couple of things. I want to finish with what you guys are doing though in your businesses and what you're seeing and how confident, where do you see things at the moment? What's working for your clients? Bec, you've sort of said the sort of things that you're doing. How are things working for your clients? What's really working for them?
Okay, so I think PR, like for my clients specifically, what's working. I've got multiple kind of clients. I can go into this as long as you want, but I'll try and wrap it up in a little nutshell because I feel like otherwise I could go on and on. So my consulting clients, I still work with like corporate PR consulting clients, quite traditional. With that, I think PR really does encompass everything in terms of messaging, whether that's content, whether that's, content marketing, whether that's PR, whether that's like speaking, CEO executive profiling, research and data, bringing that all together and then delivering that to their audiences in a way that works for them to build their kind of credibility in their industry, right? So for us, we still do a lot of media. We still do, we have a lot of speaking. We do award submissions. We do, and like social media is kind of just the place that we share all the other initiatives that we do. So it's kind of like that afterthought. That works really well. It positions them really well. They also do panels, a lot of panels, client events, in-person stuff, and then supporting that with research, data, latest trends, commentary on the market, that kind of thing. So that's sort of what I do from a corporate PR perspective. From a coaching and mentoring perspective, I primarily work with women in business, and what I do there is I support them to, overcome all those blocks that hold you back from being visible, because I really struggled with that in my career and then in my business. I hated doing live video. I think I shared with you on a previous podcast we did that. I had to try and learn how to do live video. I went live on Instagram every single Friday for like a year and just sucked for a while, and it was fine. Sometimes you just got to do that. But yeah, so I help them to get through that and then ultimately step out of corporate and start their own sort of solopreneur businesses, professional services businesses in the area that they're in, similar to what I've created in my business.
Yeah. And things going well for them. People are, they're embracing these various strategies and tactics, or kicking and screaming.
No, they're embracing it. I think people can, there is a learning curve, but I think you kind of realize in this day and age that if you don't, if you're not visible, then you're not going to do anything. You may as well just go and, work. Like, you need to learn that skill in one way or another if you want to do anything.
And it's a mindset. I say being on the margins. I mean, on the sideline.
Yeah.
If you're in the margins, doesn't matter how good you are, it's getting harder and harder for that word to get out. Thanks for that, Bec. ALV, you're doing a lot of different things now, and I believe you're evolving yet again. Do you want to walk us through what you're doing now and where you think you're going to be heading to?
You've got to evolve. You've got to reinvent.
You've got to.
I think the interesting thing I would say in relation to your question about what's working and what are clients and what are people trying and seeing success with, I think that despite the topic for this conversation and despite our protestations, AI as a technology to help particularly small businesses, streamline some stuff in their business. Absolutely. Is really, really, beneficial. And, I think there was something that was written by Tim Duggan, the author and general kind of smart thinker about town, that he said in a column in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, he said AI is a great tool at the start, and at the end, in the middle should be 100% you. It can start you off, it can shoot you in the right direction, give you options and ideas, and then it can just polish things off, just kind of, clip off any errant bits, whatever. But all the big stuff in the middle should be you, and that's really a theory that I ascribe to in my work and talking to clients. Yeah, that actually use that, on either end to kind of get you started and get you on the right track, or use that to kind of, effectively check your work. And that's really valuable, I think, also, when people are creating content in particular, because it is really hard to create content for your own channels or earned media channels at the clip that is kind of like going to be required to, as you guys said, be visible and get out of the margins, And so I encourage people to work with those tools and not put their head in the sand about them. They're getting more and more straightforward. They're getting more and more intuitive. They're getting more and more pervasive as well, And so I think that it's a vital tool for business owners in particular to learn and be comfortable with. And I would encourage people to do that, especially as it relates to their marketing, I guess, That doesn't mean that it replaces you or your voice, not at all, as we've said today. But can it replace all those kind of irritating little things that maybe you had to do to get your marketing, to get your content, your PR, your personal brand to the right audience? I mean, yeah, it would be great if it could, and it is getting better and better at that. And so I want to encourage people to kind of embrace that with a sense of, curiosity, caution, but, certainly with openness around that. Increasingly is about, showing your face, and I think that's increasingly a non-negotiable. For all your content, especially as we were talking about on social media, showing your face is mandatory. And if there are ways that you can do that are safe, feel safe for you, and find those ways, absolutely. But don't think that you can get away with trying to build your business at all without showing your face. Yeah.
And if you're employing people, you're the leader. You've got to be front and center, and all the research shows that people businesses where the leaders got their mug out there and they're active online, that builds trust for that organisation. So that can never be. It doesn't matter whether you employ 3 people or 80 or 100. It's the leader. As the leader, you need to be the cheerleader and the ambassador out there, and by putting your face, don't over AI generate it. I'm starting to see people who, hey, I know what you look like and you don't look like that. It used to be called airbrushing and photoshopped, and now it's...
I like the good lighting. Like, I love a good light, a good natural light.
And, with a bit of makeup and whatever, however it works, and coiffed, and as long as if I go to an event, I recognise you, that's the main thing. But I'm talking more about these apps where, you look like a schlub, but, all of a sudden you're wearing a suit, and you never wear a suit. But why? So why are you doing an AI app of your face with you wearing a suit or wearing something else? I mean, you can have a bit of fun and change clothes and all that, but as long as it's in keeping with you and it is you, really, that's the key thing with AI, I think, is as long as you are in the content, you are in the whatever it is. It's as long as you can genuinely, hand on heart, say my heart, spirit, soul, ideas, then I think that you can't go wrong. And look, there's you play at the edges of that, and it's all experimenting, and we're all trying to work our way through it. But I think over time there's some great opportunities, but as you say, some things to watch out for as well.
Mate, if I saw you in a suit in a video, I would immediately assume that you'd been kidnapped or something as well. I would send you a message for sure.
Or coming back from a job interview or something,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to suits for a very long time, believe me.
I just want to quickly toot Andres' horn, because I feel like Trevor asked you what you're doing now and what you're working on, and you sort of skirted the issue. But
I'm wanting to answer his original question, though.
But Andres is developing an incredible new marketing offering, which will be launching in January, and it'll incorporate some of AI. Is that good? Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the idea is to...
What is it, and why are you doing it?
Yeah.
I'm doing it because, Trev, you got to pay the bills, right? But I'm doing it mainly because I want to help businesses that are growing.
We need to work on your elevator pitch.
Sorry, I'm still getting used to it. I want to help businesses that are growing to do marketing in a way that flows, that's kind of calm, that's not reactive, that's not anxiety-inducing, and that uses their budget and their resources in a way that is kind of meaningful and impacts their actual commercial growth. And so the idea is that businesses that are growing, that have an established reputation, product in the market, can take advantage of a system which combines strategy, storytelling, and technology to create that marketing that flows, and the marketing that is designed to deliver commercial impact and business growth. So it's not just about the promotional aspect of it, it's about the full gamut of marketing disciplines, if you like, around product development and pricing and placing, as well as promotion. So that's something that I'm trying to, put together my 21 years of experience into something that's hopefully compelling and accessible for those businesses. So keep an eye on my LinkedIn, I guess. That's where I tell people more about
Terrific.
That.
Well,
and he's currently an advisor. Sorry. I was just going to say, and he's currently an advisor for small businesses and has consulting clients.
He has. He definitely has. But this is a real joining of the dots, because you've got to join dots of all the things we've talked about. Then there's the joining of the dots with technology and how you can do that. So that is something, my friend, that AI is not going to replicate in a hurry. So you're in a great position there, right at the forefront, as you always have been. I can attest, having known you for some time now, always at the forefront, knowing what's going on, but in a pragmatic way. Guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. We could probably keep the tape rolling and be quite a, we could keep going, but we won't, because we've all got businesses to attend to. So thank you very much. Bec, where's the best place to people find you after Andreas said, you don't need a website anymore? What's your website?
I still got a website. It is becsands.com.
Becsands.com. And Andreas, you got a different interesting URL.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm moderately active on there, so that's number one place. Otherwise, you can find me on my website, which is lopez-varela.com. That's my surname with the hyphen. Remember the hyphen. Don't forget the hyphen.
Remember the hyphen, absolutely. Yeah. And 2 websites there, so that's good. I was going to ask the question of the importance of having your own personal brand website. I still think there is one if you want to be the thought leader, the expert, even though if you might have a business under another name. I'm still a believer in a little bit of old school. Have your digital land scoped out. I'll finish. I'm not going down that rant. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated. Loved all this. Don't even know what the title of this is going to be because we've covered so much ground. But it's rare to be able to have this sort of full-on conversation. So thank you for your time. I know we've probably run over a fair bit, but thank you again and good luck with your projects.
Thank you so much, Trevor. So good to talk to you.